And like maybe 3 minutes, but really a very, very brief time, talking about what we call Title VI discrimination, discrimination based upon race. Kansas sent a couple of things out to everybody, only a couple pages, and it kind of gives an overview. But real simple, and it's almost plain English as well as common sense, is that public entities can't discriminate based upon race. Well, what does that mean in the school context? It means that services have to be provided to the child in such a way that race, racism, discrimination doesn't become something that impedes their right to a public education. Simple enough. If the school district doesn't provide that, then the school has a duty, once they know about it, to respond in a certain way. One of the ways they respond, they're supposed to respond under the law, is to let a person who's in charge of race discrimination, called the Title VI coordinator, know about it. In Austin, that's the superintendent. The parents have the right to receive what we call procedural safeguards, due process rights. Lets them know about the investigatory process. Lets them know about the filing of grievances. It lets them know about filing a subsequent complaint with the Office of Civil Rights. It lets them know about certain remedies that their child may be able to receive after he or she has been a victim of discrimination. And discrimination could be race, it could be religion, it could be nationality, it could be disability, it could be sex or gender. We call it Title IX, you're familiar with. So the law, permits, requires the school to provide services to children and families to protect their rights and enhance them. If they don't do those things, you can file a lawsuit. These lawsuits are not easy. As you well know, filing discrimination lawsuits on anything is hard when you're suing a governmental entity. But the standard, at least in plain English, is pretty simple. In this case, is a person a victim of discrimination based upon race? Have they been bullied or harassed because of race? And I think for all of you who have read the complaint, the answer is going to be yes, sadly. Were school district officials on notice about the bullying and harassment? The answer is yes. Did they respond what we call appropriately or reasonably under the law? And if not, were they deliberately indifferent? And the answer was they did not respond appropriately, and yes, they were deliberately indifferent. And the last piece, once again, if this child experienced a deprivation of equal access to educational opportunities. So that's the lawsuit. That's what the lawsuit's about. We're not happy to be here. We wish there was no lawsuit. We wish that the school district had responded to the family's complaints appropriately a long time ago. But one of the things they'll talk about more fully is why we filed this lawsuit. And the lawsuit's to educate. The lawsuit is for the school district. And let me say something about the Austin School District. I travel all over the state. The Austin School District is one of the best school districts in the state. But that doesn't mean because they have many accolades, they can't be questioned about some of their weaknesses and some of their problems. So anyway, after that, I'm going to let you turn it over and talk to everybody here.
Can you spell your name for us too?
Yes, my name is spelled P-A-M-E-L-A, last name Parks, P-A-R-K-S. Question?
Begin with question?
Yeah, open up, anything you want.
When did this begin at high school?
It began at the high school. Our child went to Bowie the year of 2016. She was a freshman. And upon arriving at the school, I've had relatives and I know friends and associates that have children that have gone to Bowie. And we went into Bowie being very proactive. We knew that they had an awesome music program band, and she was in the played drums in the band. So she was very avid about going there for that. They also had a really good agriculture program. That is her goal, to be an equestrian veterinarian. So her reasons for being there were purposeful. We were really excited. It was almost immediately, though, in 2016 when we arrived there. It was very different from the atmosphere that we'd experienced in the past because we're very active parents in her school, whether it was elementary or middle school. And you just kind of could walk throughout the campus and you could hear comments or racial slurs or that kind of takes you back. You're just like, wow, was that said? Okay, well, you can't control what children say or students say. I think as we progressed through that fall semester, we started realizing, and she started coming home and telling us how it happens within the classrooms. And I didn't say anything until that point. I mean, anytime I would hear someone say something in my presence, I would always say, oh, that's not appropriate, or you shouldn't be using that type of language. But when I was made aware that it was happening in a controlled classroom, where there were teachers or maybe even an administrator or someone there that should be held accountable for children, well, I told my daughter what I always told her: make sure you always go tell an adult when something of that nature happens. And so she came home and told me she was doing that because it really bothered her. The reason it bothered her was because certain particular classes and or organizations or clubs, because again, she was very active. She was in sports, she was in marching band, concert band, as well as the FFA, Future Farmers of America Agriculture Program. So in some of those particular classes, she was often, if not the only African American child, maybe one of 2 or 3. So definitely a minority. And so she began expressing how it made her feel very uncomfortable. And so the first thing I wanted to know was, well, we've never been faced with this before, so what's the steps? What do we do? We're here at this new high school, what do we do? So I said, you go to your teachers. And that began the steps. We started with the teachers or any staff member that it happened in front of. If they said they would speak to the students or they would handle the situation, we'd go another day, it would happen again, so we would go to a counselor. We went from counselors to assistant principals or associate principals at the facility. In 2016, the principal had left, so they had an interim principal at the time. So I had a very difficult time, and the emails go all the way back to 2016. So I'm emailing and requesting meetings and all. And so I finally was able to have a meeting with the interim principal. However, it was only after I myself, along with my daughter, kind of had a verbal altercation with a group of students. And they were using very foul language, the N-word. They were saying that they were very frustrated. Today's the kind of day that they could actually kill a N. Very loud. I thought I heard them saying this. I became nervous because the area where they were, my daughter was the only African-American child in this big group of Caucasian boys. And I got to say young men because the ages ranged probably from 16 to, there were some that actually had already graduated and had come back to help out, some of the younger kids. So I went over to try to voice my opinion to say this is inappropriate. The teacher was there. The teacher was helping my daughter and the other students with their animal projects, and did not say anything to stop it, didn't tell them to leave. So I voiced my opinion, and once I did, then the slander, the verbal racial comments turned to me. And I'm a parent, and so I've never had that happen before. There were other parents present. No one came to my aid. No one spoke up to say, this is inappropriate. So I got on the phone and I called another teacher who wasn't present because the teacher that was there wasn't stopping it. I told my daughter at that point, I felt like they were really hostile at that point, and we were clearly outnumbered, so I asked her to go get into the vehicle. She went and got into the vehicle, and the verbal altercations kept going back and forth with us. I called the other teacher, told her it had happened. They began to say very vulgar things about the teacher that was on the phone with me. Finally, we told the teacher that was present, she told him on the phone, you have got to get them off the property. They have to leave. Eventually, we left. I called Charles. He had to come all the way from north to try to get to where we were because he was at his office. By the time he made it there, everyone had dispersed. And so I went to the interim principal, and I went home. I typed everything up, how it happened, word for word verbatim, who said what, didn't leave anything out, explicities and all. took it to them, and nothing happened. So I waited, and I finally went to our former alumni organization that kind of was over that agricultural program, and they said the next time they had a meeting, they were going to have the principal come to address the things that had happened. And at that point, they came, but they wanted to be very vague. They just said, we're going to have to monitor things around the campus because kids are doing things they're not supposed to do, and a lot of the parents had questions. What type of things? What was done? What was said? What type of violent behavior? What type of vulgar language? And they didn't want to be specific. So at that time, I stood up at the meeting and I told everyone that was present at the meeting exactly what happened, word for word, verbatim. At that point, they assured me and Charles that they were going to set curfews. They had a process with AIC that they do whenever there's any type of racist slurs, acts, violent threats, that they call the parents, and then they had steps that they did. We called the parents, you may go to ISS, and one of the questions Charles asked was, well, in the meantime, what if something happens? I mean, at that time, our daughter was a freshman, and she's over in this area where on any given day that she goes to take care of her animals or do what she needs to do, she is surrounded by this group of people, and she's not always with an adult or a teacher. So we went that entire year with no response. They never got back to me. They never said, we're going to call the parents, we're going to suspend, there was nothing done. There was nothing done from the teachers. There was nothing done from the interim principal. And it was finally about 2 to 3 days before the end of the year, and I got a phone call from an assistant principal who said, Ms. Parks, we realized that we never had anyone apologize you for confronting you and calling you racial slurs to your daughter, and we would like to know, would you like an apology verbally, or would you like us to send you one written? That was word for word verbatim what I was told. And I laughed, and I said, at this point, I think it's a moot point. I mean, it's the end of the year. However, I would prefer you send it to me in writing so that I can add it to my incident report and all my documentation. I've never gotten it. That was 2016. So we went into the summer, and they said they had hired a new principal. I contacted the associate superintendent at the district office, which was Craig Shapiro. And I contacted him, and he was a former principal for my oldest daughter. So I had known him, and I didn't know that he was the associate superintendent. So when I got in touch with the office, I said, I just need to speak with someone because this is my next level, my next stop of the chain of command. No one at the school is taking any action. There's an interim principal there, but she won't return my calls, she won't return my emails. What do I do? They said, well, he's really busy. And so that began that whole struggle of, God, you can't get through to anyone at the district office. And I would try, and I would try. I would get Linda Martinez, his executive assistant. I would get, different people answer the phone, but they would just say that he was busy. When I finally did hear from Craig Shapiro, he said that he was sorry to hear that it happened. He said that he knew my daughter because when she was younger, she used to be like a little mascot cheerleader for my oldest daughter at her school. And he said, he sent me an email, I'm the person that you should have come to. You should have come to me. I told him I tried, but that his staff basically told me he was busy. When we finally had a meeting with the new principal, who is Mark Robinson, it was the summer prior to the 2017 school year. I went in and to tell him that I had concerns about my daughter coming back because all the things that had happened in 2016, nothing had been addressed, and that concerned me. Surprisingly enough, Mr. Robinson said that none of the interim principal who was still there and the other faculty, no one had informed him about anything that had happened the prior year. He hadn't read anything, he didn't know of anything. He said, I want to believe that maybe they were just embarrassed that it didn't get handled, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. At that time, I can honestly say, I'm a very proactive parent, we both are, and I really believed that we have a new principal and he's going to make sure this doesn't happen. I don't have to be afraid. He came in, he said he was going to pull all the notes and information, everything that happened, everyone that was involved, and he would get to the bottom of it. That never happened. So the incidents continued at that point.
Let me interrupt for a second. Talk about the Sasquatch Awards.
Yes, Cameron was, we had a banquet for marching band, and it was formal, out at the Hilton at the airport, and everyone went, and all her family had gone, we all got dressed up, and we went, and they were giving out awards, and lo and behold, they said, we have an award for my daughter. They called her name. So we were shocked and we were happy and everyone was clapping, and she stood up and she walks all through these formal tables and she gets to the front of the room, and the young man and young woman that were presenting the award, the young man said, before this award is announced, I just want to say I had nothing to do with this award and I just don't want any problems. And so then the head band director said, well, I think it was supposed to be a play on words, so people try not to get offended. So at that point, I began to panic because my child was already at the front of this room with hundreds of people looking at her. And they said they were going to award to her the Sasquatch Award. And anytime you Google the word Sasquatch, you can see that it's a large black monkey ape. And I asked them, why on earth would they do that? And they said, well, it's a play on word. It's like sassy, because we said she's really sassy. She's in the drum line, and whenever someone says something to her, like really smart, or takes a dig at her, you know, she doesn't just take it. She can give a quick comeback. So we just said that she's sassy. And I said, so how does Sasquatch come into it? And they said, well, it was a play on words, and she shouldn't be offended. I went to the band director and told them how offended we were. Of course, took a little picture of a Sasquatch from Google, just in case he wasn't aware. And we basically were told that, well, you know, kids are going to be kids. Don't pay attention to them. Don't listen to them. And we just did not understand why that was allowed to take place. Evidently, they knew about it because they tried to explain it before it was awarded.
And talk about the next school year. What's the pig barn? I had to figure that out.
Yes. Bowie High School does, they have an adjacent property that the agriculture department uses for the students that have animal projects in FFA. And so you kind of walk across the practice football field and track, and then there's a gate, and it used to be private property, but now AISD has acquired it. So, but they've used that property for many years at courtesy of Miss Akins, a really nice lady that owned the property. And she had let us use it for years. So you have to leave, actually physically leave the school and then walk over, and it's a very rustic barn. It's not like some of the other campuses that have the newer aluminum barns. So mind you, it's very old, wooden, the cobwebs. You may have seen some of the news footage about the snake problem that we have, you know, usually summer and spring. And so that's where they would have to go to tend to their animals. So oftentimes you're out of eyesight of any adult, whether it's a teacher, advisor, you're kind of going to be on your own. So whatever happens over there, you know, it's kind of secluded. So the incident that occurred with the feedback, you know, she had gone into the barn, and you have to pull back one of like the old barn doors. You have to roll it back, and you know, it creaks and it's dark in, and you have to look for the switch. And so she pops the switch up, and now mind you, Dad and I were with her that morning. We were on our way out of town to check on our cattle, and we were going to check on her pigs first, and she hit the light, and there's this white thing just swinging from the rafters. And I looked at Charles, and I could tell by his expression, he told me the first thing he went to was like KKK. I mean, white supremacy. He said it just took him there. So we looked, and I said, okay, why is this here? And she says, oh, I don't know, but that kind of stuff just happens a lot. And I said, okay, but it's not okay. So I'm on the phone, and I'm trying to call teachers, and I'm like, what is
Well,
going
back up a
on.
little bit. What she said, stuff like that happens a lot. What did she ever tell you what other things like that were?
That's one of the things that the concern that I had is because there was so much she was keeping in that by the time it started coming out, as a parent, you feel horrible that your kid just lived through this day after day and thought it's the norm. But she said on any given day, being the only black child in class, and you would hear just, earshot over her, or, hey, you N-word, or, I'm gonna, shoot me a N today, or you effing N, and she's sitting there, and she says, like, she would look at the teacher, and sometimes if the teacher saw her looking at her, like, she would say, you guys, cut it out, something of that nature, but there was never a removal from the classroom. There was never, you were not allowed to use that offensive language. There was never, you're not allowed to tell those jokes, or you can't spray paint something offensive, or you can't use a knife and carve something offensive that's against a person's rights. That step was never taken.
So from your perspective, I mean, it wasn't it wasn't a unique group of kids. It was a whole thing throughout the school. It was something that was happening regularly.
At first I thought, well, it's kind of, they don't have that many African-American students in the agricultural program. So I certainly can get that. And I'm an agriculture girl. I'm from a small town, we are. So I can get that. But since she's involved in so many different aspects of the school, and it was still popping up, it was showing up in the band program, and she did volleyball freshman year, and then she has done track every year. And so I just would notice that it kind of was a social norm. And one of the statements that Mr. Robinson had made in one of our numerous meetings was that it's going to take me some time to change the culture of this campus. And so that's when Charles asked him, so meanwhile, what do I do to protect my child? Because once they found out that her and her parents were voicing their disappointment and their offensiveness to this language and the spray painting and everything that was happening, then she was kind of being called the snitch, the whistleblower. So she already kind of was, what she felt like, her words were, I already felt like the outcast because I'm by myself. And so now I couldn't even try to do what you're asking me to do, Mom, which is go to a teacher, go to faculty, because then I'm treated worse. So Charles asked, what do we do then? What are your suggestions? What are you going to put in place so that we know that she's safe? And the only thing that we were told was that they would speak every time an incident happened. They wanted us to tell her to go tell them. And if she came and told them it happened, they would call in the person who did it, if they could catch them, and they would ask them about it. Now, 9 times out of 10, when we followed up, the answer we got was, well, we have to protect their rights. So we're not at liberty to tell you what happened with them, what we said to them. We're not at liberty to tell you that because they have rights. So I just felt like, well, what about the rights of my child, though? Because whatever you said to them, whatever you did to them, did not work. There was actually a day where we came in and she had called me and she said she was walking out of her class and a young man just walked up to her and said, hey, and called her name, and she turned around and she said, what? And he said, I got some new nicknames for some of the people in class. And she just looked at him and he said, I'm not going to call, he was referring to another girl, I'm not going to call her N-word. I'm going to call her noodle N-word because she had Asian descent. And he told, apparently the excuse we got in the office was, well, the student said he didn't call her that. He just wanted her to know he was going to call someone else that.
Did you file any formal complaints?
I asked them, this is my concern also, I asked them, well, since we're not getting anywhere, with counselors and assistant principals and principals, even with Dr. Shapiro coming over, meeting, saying that he's going to handle everything, I said, what's the next step? What do I need to do, like legally? What's the process for AISD? Well, no one would give me anything. I never was told, you file this sort of complaint, you go here, you go that. None of those steps. I was trying to Google it on their website. I inquired, I did speak with members of the NAACP. They were trying to give me advice on where to go, but they were also surprised that no one informed me of like what my rights are and what steps I could take.
Let me also answer that under the law, under the Office of Civil Rights standards that are set across the entire country for these situations, if you look at the school board's own policy and procedures, an oral complaint is a complaint. Now, certainly a written complaint is better because then, we're on the record of it. But under their own standards, if somebody complains verbally, that they have to reduce it to a written complaint, and that never happened.
No.
Just an incident, like within a few minutes, you explained about 4 or 5 different situations, and that's since year 2016, which is a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
If you could give us an estimate, how many situations or incidents did your daughter talk about, number-wise, in the span year-wise?
Approximately, if I have to give incidents, and this is not discounting the racial language, because that was something that was just a given, but actual incidents that began happening once they targeted her, which I feel is what happened because she was being verbal. I would say probably, maybe 10 or more.
Somewhere 8 or 10.
There were things like, like the Sasquatch Award. There was a time when they went onto the farm and they vandalized her equipment. They took a knife and they carved a picture of a private male part erect and put something in her feed for her pigs. We weren't able to identify what it was. It was oily. So Dad had to end up chaining and putting locks on everything that she had to feed her animals because we weren't sure what they were doing. And then, yes, they took a van trip to Indianapolis to compete. I had several surgical procedures. We were unable to make the trip. We volunteered all the time. Charles drove the 18-wheeler for them. We loaded the equipment, and we did everything at the school. So they saw us all the time. And I think one of the things that I just have to say is that despite everything that was going on with our child, I think the most difficult thing for Charles and I was to come home at night and, come home at night and realize that your child has gone through all this, but we get up every day and we go back. And those same people that were offensive, we helped. And we supported those students because they were students. So while we're asking the administrators for help and assistance to just make the program better, we weren't looking for a suit, we weren't looking for media attention, we just wanted it to stop. And so it was difficult for us to say, well, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to drive your trucks, we're not going to load your equipment, we're not going to volunteer, we're not going to donate money, we're not going to do anything, because she was still trying to be strong and be a part and fight, so we had to be there to support her. That was very difficult. So I was worried about her going to Indianapolis because it was the only trip the entire year that we weren't going to be able to make because I was hospitalized. So Charles said, I think she'll be fine. One of the assistant principals that was going, we knew him fairly well, and I said, I think things will be fine. Sure enough, she calls me from Indianapolis in tears. I asked her what's wrong. She said that they were getting ready to go perform, and a Caucasian girl walked over to her and another young girl who was, I think, Hispanic. And she said, I just want to let you know that I'm going to be in charge of doing your hair. So you need to let me do it right. And she said, well, usually I braid, because they had to do a special French braid, because usually I and my mom do all the other pit members' hair because no one knows how to braid as well as we do. And since my mom's not here, I was going to let you know that if you don't know how to do, my hair, because she was just a student herself, I can do it and you can make sure it's okay, since you may not know how to do, a person of color's hair. And the response that she got was, in front of, again, group of people, I was told to do your hair, and I'm going to do your hair because all year long, y'all's kind of hair looks like SH, And she said at that moment, she just felt like this is never going to end. It doesn't matter how much I help, doesn't matter how much I participate, this is what they see me as. And she had not been accustomed to that, and so she wasn't really sure how to handle it. So she called me because she said she felt herself being so hurt and so angry, but she always carried that fear of the moment I say something or just raise my voice to a higher level, I'm going to be deemed as, oh, that, that terrible, awful, black kid that's, being loud or being, aggressive. She said, so I felt like I had to just take it. So I called the principal. They wouldn't answer. They wouldn't call me back. I emailed. They wouldn't respond. I called down to the district office. Can someone please call me? I have a child that's in Indianapolis. I need to know what's going on. No one ever called me back. A secretary at the school campus called and said, I just want to let you know that the assistant principal that's there with your daughter knows about the incident and is handling it. I said, so I can't speak with the principal? Well, we spoke to them. So you're listening to my messages, you're reading my emails, but it's like I'm not worthy of that phone call. I'm not worthy to have a conversation with about my child. And so the principal called me from Indianapolis. He said, it was Mr. Britton. He said, he's an African-American man. He said, I spoke to her, spoke to the other young girls. She's going to be okay. She'll, make it through the trip. We'll get her back safe. I'll keep an eye on her, and we'll deal with this when we get back. To this day, no one has said a word to me about anything.
Let me also say something in relation to that question, both on a kind of a normal, day-to-day, simple, common sense level and on a legal level. So, it's one thing, as an adult, you walk into a bar and there's someone there that's a jerk. Maybe they're racist or they're anti-Semitic or they're, hitting on you as a female and they're inappropriate or something like that, or male and they're inappropriate. But that's singular. It's another thing when it's pervasive. It's another thing when you walk into the bar or the restaurant or whatever it might be, and you walk in and you say, you know what, I can feel it. This place ain't right. And, so here you have a kid who has an absolute, it's a child. He has an absolute right to go to school and be there happily and peacefully, just like any other child. So while the incidents are the things that catch everyone's attention, mine as well, it's really the day-to-day horror for these kids that's really the story. So anyway.
Speaking of the war, can you please touch on the behavioral challenges that were listed in that document and talk to us both?
Can I ask you a favor? Can you hold on to that question?
Yeah.
Because it's a huge question.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about what happened with Dad.
Okay.
As long as you were talking about incidents.
Yeah.
But what you just discussed, we definitely want to talk about
Okay.
her special self. But if you have some questions about that whole part of the story, because that's inflamed me among all the different things that upset me. But anyway, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I can lead Charles into what happened. After all these incidents occurred and we had numerous meetings and I met with Dr. Shapiro, also Tracy Hendricks, who's in charge of CTEs at the district office, spoke with, I attempted, everything that I sent to the district office, I emailed to Dr. Cruz, because that is the person that I wanted to speak with, since nothing was being rectified. And I was being told by his executive assistant, Rosa, that he's seeing everything I send, but that he just can't meet with me. So I finally just asked her, well, can he at least send me a letter letting me know why I can't have a meeting? That was never responded on. So we met with the chief of staff, Jacob Reach, and while Charles and I were meeting, first of all, they gave us 30 minutes. So we, at this point, it's 2.5 years of incidents, and we have 30 minutes to try to let him know our concerns. And he, kind of was on his cell phone. He began yawning and stretching and appeared to be tired. And so once we finished that meeting, I emailed him to say we were not satisfied. We still wanted to speak with Dr. Cruz. And Charles said, I'm sorry, if you're not going to listen, someone eventually will listen. This story will get told. And he said, so meanwhile, I got a phone call from the principal, and what he told me was this, and this leads into Charles. He said, I'm going to ask you something, Ms. Parks. And I said, okay. He said, do you think you can just let this go and be the bigger person? And I said, absolutely not. He said, well, you know, sometimes we have teachers that are young or inexperienced, or maybe they don't have proper training. I said, well, then I think AISD should provide that cultural diversity training. But what you're asking me is that you want me to let go of everything that's happened, 2016 to current, and just be okay. And his reply was, well, I mean, you could always transfer to another campus, and I would support that. Now, when he said that, of course, I always, at this point, I always talk to any of them with someone present. So my daughter's grandmother was with me, but the hurtful thing was that she was there as well. So when she heard her principal say, take her somewhere else, basically, you know, it really, I think, destroyed her. So at that point, Dad was like, no, this is, you know, I've kind of let you take the lead with all this, but I've got to get some answers. So he went to speak with Mark Robinson and express his concerns. And after doing so, he got a very big surprise at home.
Yeah, I was sitting at home and we have a company ourselves. And I got this phone call from one of my business associates that's involved a lot with the FFA. And they told me that the word's going around is that I stole the alumni tractor and I have it hid down by Waco. Now, mind you, I'll probably give Bowie High School, not so much for school, I do it for the kids. I'll probably, if it's not a game night or competition, I will probably give them 50 to 60 hours a week volunteering, either driving the rig or moving animals or something, or somewhere I'm helping out. And I go through the background check and everything. And I'm seeing this principal at every football game, because at every football game, the band goes. So this individual tells me that he got this call from one of his counterpartners, and I asked the name, and he wouldn't reveal the name. So with a friend of ours that was also in the alumni board gave me the name of the individual, and I called him. I called Mr. Fisher, Mark Fisher. And somehow down the road he was entwined with the tractor, but you know, it's by bylaws, when you disband an organization, we are to get rid of the equipment, and that money goes to the chapter, not the school. It goes to the chapter. So meanwhile, back at the ranch, it doesn't even belong to the school. So anyway, I get in contact with Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher starts telling me that he's been meeting with Mark Robinson and everything. And I guess Mark Robinson's filling him in on all this. So through a little investigation, I was able to get my hands on the police report that was filled out about me, on me, that has my minor child name in it. That mentions, and it came with a video from the school camera. And the report mentions in there that a bald black man removed the tractor. In the video, Steve Wonder running Mills out, all could see that there's 2 Ford trucks in the back. There's a tall, slender white guy, which brought the tractor. There's a kind of medium-built white lady that is his wife. At that time, I drove a 05 blue Ford. The tractor leaves in behind a gray Suburban. None of these other people, that 3 other people was there, ever was mentioned in the report. So it's kind of like, why? What is the purpose of this? And you know, you go and you try to find answers, And they basically, it's like, I guess, a head game. Well, I'm gonna tell you this lie, so you can go get this lie from this person, so you can go get this lie from this person. So after a while, they come up with this Jedi mind trick. We didn't file it. Doesn't matter if you filed it or not. You didn't put this out there. I have a name. I have a business. Why are you doing this? You seen me. Why come you couldn't come to me and ask me, Mr. Sneed, do you have any idea what happened to the tractor? No. It's like a behind the back deal. Who does that?
And why?
Exactly.
Why do you feel it
Like I was saying, you know, if you're on the edge of a cliff, you either jump or you fall off. So I just felt like it was the type of a deal, let's see if we can push them further enough and push them out of the school. Because you can't say that we're not supporting. I gave money out of my own company, even at the times that if it was needed, we done it. And then after all of this stuff come out, things started to decline. It was like, Mr. Sneed, can you drive the rig? Mr. Sneed, at a football game. We sure need you. We miss you, Miss Sneed. We miss y'all. We miss y'all. Because we was not only in the Booster Club, I was one of the drivers. And then this other young lady. And she had asked me, could I drive? I said, yeah, sure. And my wife was going, put him to work, put him to work. And it's funny. I can't put my finger on it. I can't say it, but I have a feeling, or let's say I feel that something was said or something was brought to these individuals. The reason I got the phone call and said, don't worry about it, we have a driver.
Let me also comment on that kind of just intermittently with some legal thoughts about it. One is also another violation of all anti-discrimination laws, whether it's based upon disability or sex or gender or race, is retaliation. So if anybody advocates on behalf of somebody for civil rights, then you can retaliate against that person for doing that. So in my estimation, that's what happened to Mr. Sneed, that he was a victim of the retaliation because of the advocacy both he and his wife undertook for their child.
Because it did come on the heels of us being asked to let it go, and be the bigger person. And when Charles, approached him to say, this is something I can't let go, I think he even used the analogy. He said, I'm sure you have a family and you would protect your family at all costs. He said, I've gone years now, letting, Pamela document, and I have everything from pictures to emails to witnesses. And there was even a time when some of the Caucasian parents actually told us following a meeting, do not go to the farm or certain areas by yourself. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I think I need legal help because this is going, and I...
Did they say that in like a threatening way, like, don't go to the farm, or like for your own, yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah, they were saying it out of concern. They were saying that, this whole hanging things and cutting things with knives and, we have to step back. With the vandalism of the equipment is when there was a student that came and broke onto the property after hours because there was a curfew put on the property. They came into the property and they went into my daughter's items, vandalized them, and then actually went over to her pen. And we had just come from College Station from the breeder. She usually show pigs. And we had made the trip up and she had selected her animals for the year. Very expensive animals, and they were in their pens, and they got them all set up and put their tarps over. And I get a phone call from my daughter at school, and she's like the shaky voice, and I'm always paranoid, every phone call, and I just text throughout the day. And she's like, Mom, I'm on my way over to the farm with Officer Kirchhoff. Like, what happened? She said, I'm not sure. They said there was something on social media. Someone did something to my animals in the middle of the night, and it's on social media. And I said, well, where's Mr. Robinson? Where's the administrators? She's like, I don't know. She just came, the officer just came and got me out of class and said, I need you to come so I can identify whether or not this was actually your pigs. She said, that's all they would tell her. So we start driving there. So he leaves work, I leave the home, we drive over, and sure enough, this student had came in because they, again, saw her as a whistleblower, or the phrase they use is that her and her mom, which I was referred to as a NBIT, can't leave things alone. We keep complaining about Bowie. And
But the school found it, right? Like you said the school found out and they brought her over. She didn't know. She didn't even whistleblow this one.
No, she didn't know about this one. So we asked, how did you come to find out? And the officer said the person who vandalized the pen, and they went in there and they chased down the small pigs because they were small at the time. And they held them up, and there had to have been more than one person because the person holding up the pigs, like in a token manner, someone had to take the picture. So someone standing at the end of the pen taking the pictures of the girl that had the pigs, and then posted it on social media that said, I'm living recklessly.
But that was at the time that the cameras wasn't working. Even though there's a camera right down there, to me, the camera works when you want to.
Yeah. It worked so they could see Charles with the tractor, helping the gentleman get his, because they borrowed Charles's lock and keys, and so the president of the Alumni Association at the time, she had asked him to go over so that he could retrieve his equipment, because I served on the board with her. So she had asked him, could he be there, since she couldn't, because the gentleman had purchased, the tractor. And so it was just ironic how, there's plenty of video footage for us to ask who the black bald man is, but then when someone vandalized my kids' animals and injured them, I'm sorry guys, the cameras weren't working.
Was this in the same location, and about how far apart was?
That's going to be about 50 foot apart because, like I said, I spend so much time on the farm. From where her pen is, about 25 foot, there's a camera which is on the pole there that I had to explain to Officer Kirchhoff as she called back and forth to see what number that camera was. From my daughter's pen over to the other camera is about 67 feet.
And timeline-wise, how long was it after the whole thing where you discovered the police report that may not have been filed with, it's saying that you were doing something with the tractor after your daughter?
Yeah, they filed the report following the vandalism of her pen and her pigs. And so what they did was...
Now, hold on, I think, if I hear you right, I think we just want to know, so when the video was working for your husband, what was the time span where the same video was not working for your daughter? Was it a week, was it 2 weeks, was it 2 months?
I couldn't say.
Yeah, was it like August of 2017?
Yeah, I can tell you this. The report was filed in September, mid-September, is that correct?
Yeah.
Mid-September, and we brought...
September the 18th.
September 18th, and so those pigs were brought to the farm probably first week in September. So, yeah.
2017?
Yes.
You mentioned there was a change in the leadership and the principal. Do you know why the other principal?
No, it's funny. Some of my older emails, and that's all part of my records, shows that my initial contact with the school campus and then the district office was to try to find what had happened, because my daughter came over as a freshman from Clint Small Middle School, and when we got there, the whole reason for us being excited about going with the band program, well, that band leader, who was phenomenal and everyone loved her and she was great, she left. So then she left and took the other 3 with her. So we had all band directors gone, principal gone. There was some other, so there was like a lot of faculty gone. And so I said, what's going on? Is there a reason? Is there something we should know why everyone has left? Well, no one ever responded to that either. So that was one of my initial concerns, and I was telling the principal, how come no one answers a parent's questions? So what is your protocol? Because if you have concerns, where do we go if you're not going to answer?
But the principal didn't get fired or anything like that?
We have no idea. I don't know. I know the former principal was Principal Kane,
They got walked out.
But I don't know. I don't know his reason for leaving. I don't know what they said because when I asked, they didn't tell me. They also didn't tell me the reason for all the other staff that left at the same time. So they just didn't say anything. So, but as far as back to the animals, the animals I held them. I had made it there, so I helped my daughter catch them, and the officer was there. And she wouldn't show us the paper with the picture from the social media. She kept holding it to her chest, and she said, well, I can't show you guys this because I have to protect the student that reported it. And I said, okay, I understand that. However, how are we supposed to know if the picture you're looking at is this animal if we can't see it? She said, well, I'll be able to tell. So I'm holding up the pigs, and she's looking, and she says, I'm sorry, yeah, it's them. And so then I noticed by holding, when my daughter was holding one up and I was holding one, so I'm looking at her pig that she's holding, and I'm like, wait a minute, what happened here? So they didn't have so much lacerations. There was a couple like on the hip, but there were puncture wounds, like red puncture wounds right here, like by their back legs, by their groin and in their stomach. And I'm not sure if that's from them chasing them down. I'm not sure if it was just intentional. But after that, the officer said, oh, make sure you write down everything that you spent to take them to the vet. I want to know how much they cost. They were valued. We're going to press charges, and we're going to make sure we had injury to an animal and all vandalism and the whole 9 yards. Well, we're believing them. We gave them the benefit of the doubt. Okay, surely they're going to do something because all these years I've been saying I don't want it to lead to some type of criminal act. So now we're here. So I'm hoping this is the moment to do something. Well, I get a phone call from Mark Robinson, again, because I had called to leave him a message because I was so upset about it. He calls back. And the only thing he told me was, you think that's bad? This same kid that did this to your daughter, she went on social media and she posted where we sent her the email saying that she's not supposed to be on AISD property. She posted that for everyone to see. And then she had the audacity to call me racial slurs on the internet. And I thought, and that offended you. I'm so mad. I said, yeah. And I said, imagine how my daughter feels every single day, knowing that anyone can walk in her presence and tap her on the shoulder, say the N-word, call her something, make a monkey joke, do whatever they want, and there's nothing she can do about it. And no one's going to say anything. But at that moment, he became very upset that the girl had done it to him. So following that, they had told us they were going to do this report, the person was going to be issued a warrant, the whole 9 yards. We wait and wait like we've done for the past 3 years. We finally found out, and we had to call APD ourselves because every time we would call the AISD campus police, we were getting the same 2 people on the same runaround. So I said, I'm just going to call an officer just from APD and just give them the scenario, have them look up the case, tell me, is there something I should be doing? Because it doesn't seem like the school is doing anything for my daughter. When he looked it up, he said, well, first of all, the school didn't press any charges against this person on behalf of your daughter. And I said, excuse me, no, you have to be wrong. I mean, I gave a report, I gave all the information. He said, no, they only charged her with trespassing on AISD property. So to this day, there's been no restitution for the loss because my daughter was unable to show that pig. He never got over the injury. We had to swallow the loss. We had to throw away all the feed that they destroyed, all the equipment they destroyed, and the only thing that that student was reprimanded for was trespassing on AISD property.
What are you hoping will come up from this lawsuit?
We don't forget your question.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry about that.
I am hoping what I began hoping in the beginning. I was just looking, and every email that will be part of the evidence, you'll see it. Everyone, I would say, look, guys, I'm just looking for a result. I just want a plan of action. I know that we cannot hold a school or a teacher or an administrator accountable for a person, a family, or a child's personal beliefs. People are going to spew hate. They're going to be racist. They're going to do what they're going to do. I said, but I feel that once that student or that family member, the parent, comes to that school campus, then it is my child's right, her civil rights, her human rights, to be there and be in a comfortable environment where no one is spewing hate or racial slurs at her. So can we put something in place to where if the teachers don't feel comfortable addressing it with those students, can we put something in place to train them adequately on how to handle it? Or if it's a matter of a classroom kind of out of control, can we get them some help or some assistance? In some of those meetings, some of the teachers had said that a lot of times they send those kids out and they send them to the administrators and they're sent right back. And the very moment they get back in that classroom, now they're upset because one of the problems we had was 9 times out of 10, every time my daughter went, she said, "Mom, I don't like going to give reports." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because then they tell the people I did it." And so she walks back into the classroom and they're like, "Man, we hate you, you effing bitch, you know, because they've told them, well, she came to the office and she said this, that, or the other. And I'm like, okay, where's the confidentiality for her, but you're keeping the confidentiality for the kids that are doing it against her? That I'm not understanding. And then they would come out of the office. We came out of the one meeting that day and we went over to the farm and I said, "I know you're stressed, I know you're tired, but it's gonna get better." We had a really good meeting with a really good counselor. Her name was Miss McGraw. She said she sympathized because she had been a student. She had graduated from Bowie. And she said on any given day, she could relate. She could go throughout the corridors and the hallways, and she knew the language. She knew the slander. They'd see the things spray painted or carved on wood. She knew it existed, and that they were trying to change the culture, but she definitely sympathized. I mean, she was even in tears. And she said, "I felt so bad for your daughter when she came to tell me that, it's okay. It happens every day." I know there's nothing you can do about it, Miss McGraw. So, she felt bad for the counselor crying, but she was like, "I carry this daily." And so I got to the point where I was like, first of all, I want accountability. I want someone to say, "We dropped the ball on this," because this should not happen in this manner, not just to my child, to any child, whether it's because of social status, economics, gender, race, it doesn't matter. I just don't feel like a child should have, in this political climate we're in, and I told the principal this, you have mass shootings, you have all this stuff that happens that triggers children, teen suicide attempts. I know parents there. I know parents there personally. Nothing I'm speaking of is something someone told me. It's not hearsay. I've been on the campus. I've seen it. I've had it thrashed at me. I've seen it done to him. I've seen them say it as my daughter and I are passing by. And someone yells it to you while you're getting in your car. But you're just trying to, as the principal would say, be the bigger person. And you're trying to hold it together so that you're not labeled. But then we don't get any results. So we were promised all types of results. Dr. Shapiro said that he was going to hold a press conference or a meeting, and he was going to bring Charles and all those people that had spread those slanderous allegations, and he was going to have everyone there, and he's going to set the record straight. And I think the last email I looked before I left home that he sent, and Charles was like, "Okay, I'm waiting. It's been like weeks, okay? It's been months. When are we doing this?" "Oh, it's coming. It's coming." And it's like December 2018, we haven't heard from him.
Your daughter doesn't go to school in the district anymore, correct?
She does.
Oh, she does still, okay.
She does.
So now that we're talking about her still being in school, can you just describe her behavioral changes since all of these things were happening to her? And part two, how do you think this will impact what she's wanting to do after high school?
Well, I can tell you that how it's impacted her behavior, and that's a difficult part, is because she did mask it and stay strong for so long. And so we talk all the time, so I'm like, "Cameron, are you okay? Are you sure you want to stay at the school? I'm okay if you want to transfer. I'm okay if you want to move," because with my medical condition at the time, my fear, and I think I told one of the band directors, my fear is that I may not even see my daughter walk across the stage. So every day of my life I devote to trying to make sure she is okay for as long as I can. And it was killing me that I couldn't protect that. I couldn't make it stop. I couldn't make the district do the right thing. I kept trusting the wrong people. I kept telling her it's going to be okay because I know Dr. Shapiro and he promised this and he met with Dad and I know this is the 4th meeting, but it's going to change. Be strong. And after the incident happened with
the allegation of the theft, she went to the Travis County stock show. She kept persevering. She became an officer in the FFA program. She made junior superintendent for Travis County. She's the only African-American child. Anything outside the campus, if that makes any sense, like on a Travis County level, or anything she does that's outside of her little local school, she excels. People vote for her. They say she's wonderful. You're going to be a great vet one day. Cameron, you're wonderful. You're great. She volunteers for rescuing dogs. She volunteers at the vet clinic. She's already enrolled at an agricultural program through Texas A&M for her CVA, which is Certified Veterinarian Assistant Program. But when she gets on the campus, it's just like, we hate you. You know, we don't want you to succeed. You have good grades. She's never made lower than a B, ever. She's in all these activities. I don't care if she has to sit up till 4 or 5 in the morning. She's going to study. She's going to do what she needs to do. And I actually walked in after the Travis County show, and she's sitting on the bed, and I'm like, are you almost through studying? Because I always stay up with her, and I double check everything. And she burst into tears. And I'm like, what is wrong? And she just said, I don't think I can do it. You know, I don't want to let you guys down, and I don't want to give up, but I've never felt this light to this magnitude, you know, where someone would say they like you, or pretend like, oh, come on, yeah, let's do this, oh, I like your animal, or oh, you're good in band, or all this, and then the next minute, they're calling you a racial slur, or they're vandalizing your equipment, or they're saying they hate your mom and your dad, or they're making threats. And she said, I just don't know how long I can hang on because I have another year. I don't know if I'll make it, Mom. So I talked her through it. We talked to a counselor, not at the school, but I provided her with a mental health counselor, a therapist. And her therapist was just really irate. She's like, I just want to tell you to take her out of the school, but I admire her tenacity. I admire her wanting to be strong. She said, but I just want to tell you to just take her and run, because who can deal with that daily? So she went out to the Travis County show as a junior superintendent, and they began the taunting and the saying nasty things again. And I got a phone call from a friend of mine that was out there, a former alumni member of mine with me, and I was told that Cameron had came off the stage and she was collapsed in the bathroom area, sobbing uncontrollably, and they didn't know what had happened.
And that's the part that gets me. If you want to come for me, I'm a man. Come for me. If you want to come for my wife, come for her. We can defend ourselves. But when a grown man, a grown woman attacks a child, you weak. You weak. And it's like, prior to going out there, with all the dedications that we've done and everything, we got a nice call. Well, my wife got the first call from Mark, and he stated to her that, now, we've done everything and supported her of what we needed to do because she's an officer. And because we didn't join the Booster Club, Mr. Robertson decides to call us and tell us, well, if you make auction, that the Booster Club won't be bidding on your daughter.
You won't support her at the Travis County function because you refused to join the Booster Club. And my answer to him was, this Booster Club is the Booster Club that they came up with to replace the alumni. And my belief is that it was because, you know, the alumni was the people that were on the board that were running the alumni at that point were more concerned with everyone doing what was appropriate, taking action if someone did not do something that was appropriate. The alumni went away. They said they no longer wanted it. They started a booster.
So yeah, who got rid of the alumni? How did that happen?
They said that the administrators and the teachers are able to just tell you if they don't want it anymore.
So basically the school told you.
The school said, we don't want you anymore, and by the bylaws, from what I'm understanding, is that if they say we don't want you affiliated with our chapter, then you just have to go away. So after 30 years, we went away. And so they started this booster club. And I told him, you know my reasons, and even Dr. Shapiro, we had a meeting and I have it on record. I said, you understand I will never join that booster club because these are the people that refer to me and my daughter as racial slurs. So why would I write them a check and support them? I will support the chapter. I will support your teachers. I will support the club, the students even the ones that were ugly. I will do that. But I'm not going to go and sit and be a part of a group that views me as less than.
So there were also adults, like parents and others in the community using, it wasn't just the students?
The parents of the students, they wouldn't say it to my daughter, but it was just said in their groups, like when we were out at the TCYS stock show, and the group of students would show up, and they showed up in blackface, but they gave the excuse that, no, it's not blackface, we're going hunting.
The parents did or the students did?
The students did.
But some of these students, mind you, they're adults now.
Yeah, they're like 19, 20.
I see.
So they're not students no more. And so we're going through that. And, I think the president and everything of TCYS, because they got in and they supported and brought her around till I was able to get out there to see what was going on. Meanwhile, you got these grown adults running around condoning the same female that injured her pig. It's like, come on, for real?
Right. She started showing up places where my daughter was, and they were making her know that you can't be anywhere for a school function for AISD. And so she would show up, and so then they told her she had to leave the premises. So then she became angry and, of course, targeted Cameron and Charles for that, saying that it's their fault that she's having to leave. And so that started all the animosity and the threats and all that stuff happened. And so she just said, I can't do this anymore. Because if I go outside of the school campus and I try to do something in the community to get my accolades and to focus on what my career is going to be, and I try to do things so I'm not dealing with the racism, they follow me there. And they bring, like a dark cloud just everywhere I go. She said, I think it's just that they want me to quit. And so at that point, the whole family, my sister, her grandmother, all of us, we have met so many times with, our pastor, people pray for her. We're like, look, I'm not going to keep putting you through this. Because at this point, I don't know what's going to happen. Would I have thought in 2016 that there was going to be a white feed bag hanging from a news? No. When we had a meeting about it and I asked the principal and the teacher, why did that happen and how come when I reported it to them, nothing was done? And the only thing I was told by the teacher was, well, the student told me that he was just going to decorate the farm for Halloween. And he didn't mean anything by it. I said, how can you say that wasn't offensive? She said, well, all I know is that when he got ready to hang it, I told him, do not hang it by the neck, hang it by the top of the head. And I said, why would you have him hang it at all? And she didn't answer. So after that, I was told by one of the associate principals that the teacher was, upset and distraught, and so they kind of would always shut me down with the questions, just kind of like, okay, you keep asking us the same thing. I said, well, I keep asking because I'm not getting answers, and I'm not getting resolved. So yes, I'm going to keep asking. And I think at that point, like I said, just the repetitious of it all, I think that's when the retaliation set in. They just got frustrated after I was blatantly asked to let it go, stop, don't question it anymore, and be the bigger person. And after I said absolutely not, and maybe this will end, in a positive way, maybe this will end with legalities, but I will never just let it go when it comes to my daughter. And after that phone call, that's when all of this started happening.
Why? Oh, go ahead.
Other than your family and the lawyers, who has actually shown support, especially recently now that you guys are filing a lawsuit?
All of my friends and stuff, they're supported. We know numerous of people there at Bowie because we was so inclined with it. when you have a friend, you have a friend through thick and thin. When you have somebody that's not your friend, that is playing like your friend, those are going to be the ones that jump on social media and say, this. Because some of us have a brain, but it doesn't actually work. And it's small, so we do small things. We in society today, we teach our kids, and we try to teach everyone, if you see something, say something. But when you say something and nothing gets addressed, it's like, wow. You know, like we mentioned Paul Cruz, you can go to Mendez School and put your sombrero on and talk about flipping tacos, but you ain't met with us yet. You won't even answer the email. Why? Give us a response. Why? And then you're going to set up and talk about, well, he turned down this X numbers of dollars. Maybe he should have. And it's, if you are in a position, especially childhood learning or whatever, it takes very special people to do that. And if you are not going to go the extra mile to do your job, quit, go get your job in a pie factory. Because those are our kids. Anybody in here, anybody that sees this footage, I would do anything to help their kids. So if you are in the school district and you're not there for the same reason, why? Move on. They got pie factories, they'll got donuts.
I think the central question is, why do you think there was such inaction by both teachers and administrators?
From what I can only give my opinion, and I know there's throughout the year, you guys probably already know this, there's been a lot of incidents that have occurred over at the Bowie campus. And so we go to the parent meetings when they call them and they try to address whether it was inappropriate acts with the teachers or racial acts, allegations, whatever happens, we go. So we can see what's going on. Okay, maybe this is the time to band together and we'll get something done. The problem is, I think they've become accustomed, and I saw this. I saw some of the comments on social media after KVU's article ran. People saying that, oh, this is just the norm. This has gone on for years. This has gone on forever. So many parents said that, yeah, it happened to my kid, but I just told him, keep your head down, don't make any waves, just get across the stage. And when I first started meeting with Mr. Robinson, and Mr. Shapiro told me that he was going to be coming new, I told him, I said, I want those parents to know that this is a fresh start. Dr. Shapiro said that you're here, you're a new principal, and that this is going to be a fresh start. So how can I help? And I had even talked to Dr. Shapiro about, he said, we have a position that's open, Pamela. It's like a part-time type position where like a parent kind of like is the person that is the go-between for the parents and the staff and kind of like liaison and all that. Oh, you'd be perfect for that. I mean, I'm really in there trying to think I can help fix the problem. And so when we were in one of these meetings, another parent stood up. This parent happened to be Caucasian. He stood up and he said that he was in the middle of a lawsuit. And he said, I think the reason you guys don't address us as parents, because they were saying how they had called about the concerns of the teachers that, that was with the student, and no one ever responded. So they said maybe it wouldn't have gotten to that point if you guys had listened to our concerns. We had concerns from day one. And so he said, I believe that you just don't want the school to look bad score-wise. You want to look like you don't have any incidents or concerns. And, he said, because your scorecard looks really good, your report card looks really great, but all of us parents in here that are in the middle of any type of litigation with you guys or whatever, we know things have happened. So where's all that information? So when they asked that, it's the first time I had thought about it, when that parent stood up and said that. And so I said, that makes sense. I said, maybe if they don't respond, they are kind of accustomed to parents just going away. It takes a lot. Like I said, I have 3 years worth of emails, text messages, phone call messages, you name it, photos, because I have been with these people trying to get something done for 3 years. So there's a lot of people that aren't going to take the time to do all of that.
or they're going to see their child struggling and they're going to say, we can't go any further, you know, and they're going to leave or transfer. I know a parent that their child was, attempted suicide, and they were like, I don't want them around this environment. So there are parents and families that leave and they just don't feel comfortable making a case. They don't feel comfortable going to the media. I was asked numerous times in the past 3 years, just go to the media. Everyone else does it, go expose it. And I took some flack, about that later on, because some family members were like, why are you waiting? What are you waiting for? I said, well, I want to make sure I'm covering every base, because if I don't, they will say, well, this is the protocol and you didn't do this and you didn't do that. So that's why I asked them, what is my next step? Who do I go to? What do I fill out? What do I do? I was never told anything about a formal complaint, what the process was. I even spoke with one of the trustee members, and this wasn't I didn't do so because I knew the process. I did so because she was at a meeting with us and we knew her. Our daughters played in the pit, in the band together. That was Jasmine Wagner. And so at this meeting, when everyone was upset and giving their stories, and we were sitting kind of quietly, and so one of the parents said, just like what's happening to their daughter. It's horrible what's happening to their daughter. And she looked at me and she said, what's happening? And I told her just a little bit of it there, and she wanted me to call her or email her so we could discuss it. I emailed her all the details. I have the emails where she emailed me back. She said that she went and spoke to Dr. Cruz personally. The email says that Dr. Cruz said that not only was he going to follow up with me, but he was going to also let Charles and I know what the next step would be. That email from her says that. Every time she would see us at a football game, on campus or whatever, she was like, has he gotten with you yet? I was like, no ma'am. So I think my last email to her was just like, I'm not going to put this on you to resolve. I mean, if he's not going to follow through, he's not going to follow through. I'm just going to have to consider other angles at this time.
Is your daughter entering her junior year or her senior year?
She'll be going into her senior year.
Okay, so this is a span of 3+ years. Can you speak to where her mindset is now going into this year, and you guys are having the lawsuit? Are you concerned at all with what may come of this? Or
I'm very concerned. There was retaliation prior, so of course my number one concern, both of ours as parents and our whole family. That's why the whole family met last night, and we're like, what do we need to do? Because we didn't want to get to the point of having a lawsuit. And for any of the persons that are on the social media or going out saying, well, why 3 years? Or, oh, this is just, a money grab or whatever. I never asked for anything from you except a solution. A resolution to the problem, plan of action, and to improve the situation and to make it stop. And so now I ask her, everything that's happening, there could be even more backlash. You may be even more, of course, you're gonna, you may be uncomfortable, but I can't guarantee what anyone will do. I mean, because I never predicted everything that has already happened. So we gave her that option. Do you feel like you want to switch schools? Do you feel like you want to maybe homeschool or go through ACC or something of that nature? What she told me is that she's done the hard work. She's gone through 3 years. And so here she is, senior year, and she's supposed to give them what they want, and walk away. So as parents, we're stuck with, well, we have to respect your wishes, but then we also have to keep you safe. So what I'm hoping the lawsuit will do is make them understand that this was not just a hysterical mom, a dramatic mom. I've worked in the school system all my life with nieces, nephews, my kids, everything else. I have never done anything remotely close to this. I can work through anything. I was an early childhood educator for 20 years. I support teachers and administrators wholeheartedly. And it's documented. They have it documented with every meeting. Nothing but support. Even after being called racial slurs, being threatened, I still was there. And so I'm hoping that they will see the errors of their ways, that there were things that we did wrong. It should have never gotten to this point, There were things that we should have done for the child, and there were things that we should have provided the parents tools and options as to what we could do, and maybe we wouldn't have been to the point of a lawsuit. As far as Cameron's state of mind, she says that she is good. You know, she's okay. She can manage because she's used to it at this point. But she did have that episode, which was mentioned in the document, where we started noticing the, you know, we know her eating habits, we know her favorite foods, and everything began to be, oh, don't worry about cooking dinner, Mom, because I'm not hungry. Well, where's your sister? I would ask my oldest daughter, and she's like, and she said she didn't want to come out. It's a weekend, and she's just in bed the entire weekend. And this is a kid, like I said, we're farming people. We're ranching people. She is on her horses. She's going to Waco with Dad, checking on the cattle. She is an outdoor person. She is stir crazy. And this kid laid in that room and in that bed, it scared me so bad that I actually called the hotline, because we have that benefit through EAP, through our insurance, and I called so that a 24-hour counselor could kind of be on standby and said, this just happened, you know, she's really distressed, eating habits are off, sleeping all the time, her whole voice and mannerism had just changed. I'm worried. And I told that to Dr. Shapiro. I called him on his cell phone, he was out of town. And I said, I am worried for my child. This is not her behavior. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to find her dead. I don't want her to, you know, lose it and snap for something, you know, one day at school. So I need to know what I can do.
And see, that is the problem. The kids that are doing this, they're not learning that at school. They're learning that from home, okay? And what we need to learn today as we raise our kids, that's the future. That is the future. So if you are engraving and teaching in this, when they get out in the street, that's what they're going to know. And once they're in the street, you're going to run up on somebody that's not going to accept it. And, you know, it's, I don't know, it's crazy. Instead of us moving forward, we're going back.
I think, you know, one of the surprises to me about all this was how unexpected it was to me to hear about what happened here in Austin, Texas. Right? I mean, Austin, great. And AISD certainly is a jewel. But for this to occur doesn't surprise me because there's jerks everywhere. You know, kids are kids, and kids do stupid things. And I have this joke, you're supposed to do stupid things when you're young. You can't get away with them when you get older. But when you're young, you know, stupid things are stupid things. But as adults, as teachers, as professionals, as administrators, our job is to teach. And our job, when we hear of children who do these kind of things, is to let them know, one, that it's wrong, and then two, to teach them about how to do things better. And the other thing that troubles me about this situation, and it kind of started up at the beginning, is that there's a process to deal with this. Now, it's not intended to cure hatred, it's not intended to cure stupidity, it's not going to get rid of every moron who's a racist or a sexist or a homophobe or whatever, or anti-Semite. But it sets up a process that the school district is supposed to follow that's been around for like 25, 30 years. Actually, the Civil Rights Act itself is from 1964, right? So that's the part that this lawsuit's about, is that there's a process set up to deal with this, and our job is to make sure that AISD and other school districts hear about this lawsuit, follow the process. Because if you follow the process, you know, that's what America is, due process. If you follow the process, you're going to get good outcomes most of the time. Anyway, I guess that's pretty much for now. We want to thank you all for being here. We have a treat for everybody while you're packing up also.